Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of New England Sports Weekly. As always, I am your host, Sean Metcalf, and I am glad that you've decided to join me this evening. And before you mention it, folks, I am very sorry that we are half an hour late here this evening, as man, it was a complete cluster F as far as trying to get this thing sorted out and get everything up and running. Not just because switch the room here, but man, it took half an hour, half an hour to load the uh the stream. So I don't know what was going on. I checked checked my connection with everything else. The internet was going on, so I don't know if it was the website, the host. I mean, usually I've had amazing luck with the stream service, but nonetheless, I am so sorry if you are watching live about the delay. But we are underway and we are ready to roll. And of course, as always, it is going to be a jam-packed show as far as the New England sports scene is concerned. I mean, if you haven't had your head under a rock lately, you know that there's a lot going on here on and off the court and fields here for all of your New England sports teams, especially the Celtics and the Patriots. We'll dive into that here shortly, but I hope that you guys had a good Halloween weekend. I hope you enjoyed your spooky season as that has come to a close. And it was a fun one here for me. Had a couple parties went to, but I had all kinds of fun here and I enjoyed it immensely. Now, we will dive right in here just because we have a lot to get to. So, without further ado, it is the out of the box segment. And we will kick things off with the biggest headliner here, and that is Ime Udoka is rumored, because there's been nothing official, but a lot of the big time NBA reporters, Adrian Wojnarowski and Sham Charania, have all reported multiple reports that the Brooklyn Nets are in pursuit of Ime Udoka, the former suspended Boston Celtics head coach, as he is officially suspended for a full season by the Boston Celtics. And can't say former just because he's still on the roster. And of course, it was kind of all quiet on that front as far as we all knew what was happening before the season started, but it ended up kind of really escalating really quick here over the last couple of days, as now in the last 24 hours, 30 something hours, reports have been kind of flooding in by a bunch of different reporters that it seems like the Nets are hot and heavy after Udoka, is he will most likely be their next head coach after, and this was only what, 6 hours, 12 hours, or very shortly after Steve Nash was fired by the Brooklyn Nets. It wasn't too long after they didn't let that body cool before they went out and searched for a head coach. And it wasn't long after that they went after former Nets assistant in Ime Udoka. So nothing official yet. As you can imagine, there's probably some red tape that they have to cut through and some legal problem situations that they might have to deal with here when it comes to Udoka. We'll see how that all kind of unravels here for the Boston Celtics. And I would expect probably within the next day, maybe in the next 12 hours, we'll probably hear something. All the way that goes with my podcast, I'll probably log off and there'll probably be something that happens right here and right now for your Celtics. So we'll keep you up to date, and if I get any update during the show, I'll share it with you. But nothing yet. And of course, in other news, the New England Patriots beat the New York Jets in a a turnover-filled just slog, I guess, if you will, because there were times where it looked like the Patriots were going to have great field position, but they would settle for some field goals. They did get a couple touchdowns there to widen that gap and ended up winning 22-17. It really wasn't that close. The Jets got a last-second field goal, and I'm pissed because I took the Patriots in the over. And if the Patriots had taken that field goal in the first half, then I would have hit my 40.5 over, and I would have had another $150 richer this weekend. So wasn't too happy about that, but nonetheless, it was a Patriots win over the weekend. And Mac Jones did finish the whole game as the starter, so Belichick did pretty much stick to his word there, even though he never really officially said it towards the end of last week, but pretty much it was all the arrows were pointing towards Mac Jones being the starter for that game. And he started and finished, even though he had a little bit of a shaky start with that interception that got deflected and then one that got called back right at the half. So it wasn't the prettiest of interception. It wasn't the prettiest of starts there, especially that first half. And of course, Devin McCourty, who had a big day with 2 interceptions off of Zach Wilson, was named the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. So another accolade going towards him, and he is now the active leading interception leader in the NFL with 32. So McCourty is well up there as far as one of the better Patriots defensive backs that we've seen, and he kind of goes quietly unnoticed, but he has been one of the best that we've seen in recent years, at least in that safety position, probably the best safety that they've had since Rodney Harrison. Now, excuse me. So the Patriots will look to keep things rolling as they go to they stay home to face the Indianapolis Colts, and they will take on a depleted Colt squad who traded away Naheem Hines, and it looks as though Jonathan Taylor might not play, and the Colts, most importantly, fired their offensive coordinator and have benched Matt Ryan, so they're just all a mess. But of course, the way things have been going lately, you don't want to just pencil this in as a win for the Patriots. So we won't be putting the cart before a horse, at least on this one, as far as just kind of looking at it from that standpoint. But we'll break that game down here shortly. And the Boston Bruins came from behind yesterday, 3 goals down, 5-2 to win in overtime against the Pittsburgh Penguins, 6-5, as Hampus Lindstrom had the overtime goal, and he is already paying off. And this Bruins team is 9-1 to start the season, they are more than red hot. They are white hot right now. It is a pleasure to watch these Bruins, and they are at the top of the league in scoring, which I didn't think to start the season, especially missing Brad Marchand. That, of course, you had Pasta and Bergeron and Hall, but you were missing one of the better right wingers in the league. So it was a pleasure to get Brad Marchand back here and have them ready to roll and ready to go. But it is, of course, the big news is we'll dive right in to the Boston Celtics as Ime Udoka. As you all know, right before the start of the season, maybe 3 weeks? More than that. 6 weeks ago, Ime Udoka was suspended by the Boston Celtics for a full season for basically there's been no concrete admissions. It's basically the Celtics in their press conference basically admitted that there were multiple infractions against him, breaking team violations. And of course, then there's been all kinds of speculation about who he had an inappropriate relationship with, which female it was, and to what extent. And of course, it started off as consensual and then turned into a situation where it wasn't. So it's been up and down as far as there's been all kinds of rumors. Everything's been kind of bandied about here about Ime Udoka, what's going on and what he did. But the bottom line is that he's suspended for a full year for these discretions. And now the Brooklyn Nets have come calling, and they would like to have their old assistant back as a head coach after they fired Steve Nash. So, like I said in the beginning of the show, they didn't let that body was still warm before they shipped it out of the building. As far as when it comes to Steve Nash, before the rumors started flying around that they wanted Ime Udoka to be the new head coach to start the season. But of course, he still is part of this. He still has a contract with the Celtics. And of course, you knew that probably by the end of the year, the way things were going, he's going to be released. But now it seems as though the Celtics aren't going to trade him to the Nets. It seems like they are just going to release him from his contract, just eat whatever's left on that, and let him pack and head out of town and go to Brooklyn. So the big question here in all of this is this the right move for the Boston Celtics? And when I say, is this the right move, I don't mean, is this the right move from the standpoint of letting him go and not bringing him back as the Celtics coach. Because obviously that ship had sailed. You could tell from the very beginning at that press conference that the ship was gone. There was no chance of him coming back, just the way that ownership had talked about him in the whole situation. But the Celtics, I think from this standpoint, did screw up from this standpoint of not getting something for Udoka. Now, I know people do want to bring up the standpoint that they just want to wash their hands clean of Udoka, and with the whole, I guess if you want to call it sexual misconduct or however you want to term it, because nobody, like I said, nobody really knows exactly what happened. But with whatever missteps that he had in inappropriate relationships that he had with any member of the Celtics, any female member of the Celtics staff, it was bad enough where the Celtics just want to get rid of him. But you're sending him to the Nets, and the Brooklyn Nets, along with talent wise, are one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. I mean, obviously the Celtics are right there with the Milwaukee Bucks, and obviously the Celtics went to the NBA Finals last year. I don't have to tell any of you that, but we all know it's the Celtics, the Bucks, the Miami Heat may not be talent-wise, but they're always in the mix as far as competing deep into the playoffs. Now you can throw in the Cleveland Cavaliers, who the Celtics are playing tonight. And of course, you can throw in another handful of teams there. You want to throw in Chicago. You want to throw in the 76ers. But of course, the Nets, talent-wise, are right there in the top of the league. And now, oh boy, now it is just ridiculous as far as what's happening, because now you're going to give the Brooklyn Nets, who are dysfunctional dumpster fire. This is that meme that you see all the time out there with those two dumpsters floating down that street that was flooded, and you're just watching them go, and they're on fire. That's pretty much what the Brooklyn Nets are. They're a floating dumpster fire that everybody can watch go right down Main Street on a flooded street right now. That's exactly what they are, because obviously you have the Ben Simmons situation where he hasn't played in a while. You got Kevin Durant, who wanted to be traded in the offseason, but then kind of capitulated and came back. And that was all a hubbub about nothing really. And then, of course, you have Kyrie Irving, who is Mr. Eclectic, Mr. Just, I can do whatever I want, screw the rest of the team. And then now, man, he really stepped in it as he had that social media post, I believe it was on Instagram or Twitter, the anti-Semitic remarks as well. So that's just something that is just disgraceful as far as coming from Kyrie Irving. That's just unacceptable coming from his part, a person that tries to preach to be a better community, and somebody that preached about Boston and all that about that whole situation with the water bottle, but this is a man that's just, to me, is a walking contradiction in his whole life, and I just, he is so fake, and now these whole anti-Semitic remarks just, it's just very, 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 very distasteful and very wrong on his part. All very wrong, very, very wrong. And this whole group of players, and now obviously the whole anti-Semitic remarks by Kyrie, that's a whole different ball of wax that we won't get to right at this second, but very there's no excuse for that. And but this group as a whole, when it comes to the Brooklyn Nets, is very talented. So to have a coach the caliber of Udoka, who in short order last year became one of the top 5 coaches in basketball, and I know, oh, that's hyperbole, he's only coached 1 year as a head coach, but this is a man that took the Boston Celtics, who were very split, if you will, very sectorial, I guess, if you will. Just they had their own cliques in this locker room, and you had guys like, I love Jason Tatum, and obviously Jason Tatum has matured a lot now. We talked about that last week, but he's matured so much over the last year plus. But when Udoka first got there, he got these guys to play together, to play as a team, and really put aside some of those individual goals, or not put them aside, but at least put them on the secondary level, and at least harp to them, preach to them that we need to play as a team to get to where we want, and really pull this team together. And obviously a group of big egos themselves with the Celtics that he was able to wrangle them in, of course, with Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. But he was able to get them to play together as one, and we saw the results. They got all the way to the NBA Finals, get to Game 6, although they lost, but still, they were able to get to the finals. But of course, now with everything that's transpired over the offseason, he's obviously on the way out. But if he goes to the Nets for nothing, you're giving them a huge advantage on the coaching staff. Now, obviously, I say this from the standpoint that I know what Udoka is, and I know what he can bring to that team, as far as to try to maybe put some of these egos aside, or at least try to wrangle them in. But still, the wild card here is Kyrie Irving. He always seems to, no matter how good the situation is, he finds a way to roll that hand grenade into the room and walk out and just watch the shrapnel fly everywhere. And that's what it seems like. That's why I can't trust this situation. I don't care how good Udoka is. That's just where, yes, I think he would help them, and I think he would do a good job there, especially with Durant and Ben Simmons and the rest of that team. I think he would get them to play well. But that second superstar that you have in Kyrie Irving, he is just, I don't know who can handle him. I don't even know if Greg Popovich could. This is utterly ridiculous, how just off the wall, and just how aloof, and just at sometimes where he just could give a rat's ass if he's out there playing basketball. So yes, Udoka is going to be a huge asset for them, but the wild card there is just going to be what's going to happen with Kyrie Irving. Is he going to blow this whole situation up? So, and it's just, and if you're the Nets, what are you doing? You're just touching somebody that is nuclear at this point. They're radioactive, and you're bringing this into a situation that's already in a bad place. The Nets are 2-6. And then, of course, we just talked about Kyrie Irving, and Ben Simmons has now missed 2 games. So it's just an absolute mess down there. And now you're going to bring in a guy that's had all these allegations against him as far as in Boston. Now, obviously, we're not talking about anything he didn't do anything illegal. There's nothing along that lines. But I'm just talking about all those allegations about the misconduct and him being suspended by the Celtics. So there's a lot to unpack there when it comes to Udoka. Now you're going to bring him into this powder keg and expect him to calm everything down when he's got his own problems to deal with. And obviously I know it's not the same organization, but now if you're the Nets, you're going to have to watch him like a hawk just to make sure that he doesn't do anything there. And of course, you're probably going to get one of those corporate polished type of press conferences where they just ignore everything. But while they don't ignore everything, they'll just be like, "Oh no, he's going to be focused on basketball. This is a different situation. We've done our vetting. We blah blah blah. We've done all this. We've done all that." Going to be like a 5-minute thing. Really not, and obviously they're not going to get into any details of it if they know anything, if they were told anything by the Celtics, which they should be telling them. Well, that's kind of a shitty move, but I mean, you're going to get that corporate car wash type of interview, and just kind of going to blow over it if you're the Nets, and that's going to go. I mean, that's honestly going to pair well with the way that, and I say that sarcastically, I don't mean it actually when I say pair well with that situation, the whole dumpster fire that's going on there. But it just kind of comes back to, for me, as kind of split as I am as far as how good Udoka is. He also, just in the dumpster fire that this is, it just to see him, an asset like him, just walk out the door for nothing, where you have him by the balls in this situation, and you should be asking for compensation from this standpoint. Now I know people, I'm not like, oh, a second round pick to me means nothing. So this is where I think you should go after him for a first round pick, an unconditional pick. So there's no conditions on that. Or you go after one of their players. You try to get like a player swap in here. But just to ship him off for nothing, I mean, I don't get it. I mean, and obviously there's stuff that we don't know yet about what's happening, and even the Celtics players don't know, because they're kind of, some of them, like Marcus Smart, said that he would give him a hug next time he sees him, because remember, he's not allowed back in the Celtics facility. So it's just odd, because obviously the players, because the Celtics are rightfully so using the legal situation, because remember, they hired a law firm here to investigate the situation. And of course, this is where they can't say much about what's happening, or else they're going to get in trouble. They're going to get slapped with a lawsuit in this situation. So they can barely tell their own players. They can just tell them that discretions happen, but they can't tell them details or what happened, who, and all that. But from this standpoint, though, it's just something very egregious in my mind has had to have happened for them just to kind of wipe their hands clean, shove them out the door, and give them a kick in the ass and say, "Yeah, good luck in Brooklyn." So I don't know. It's very odd that they have decided not to get any compensation for Udoka, who, again, this could blow up in their face from the standpoint of maybe, just maybe, he finds a way to get Kyrie Irving to settle down, and maybe he gets him to play as a team, gets this whole team to play together, and they could turn into one of the, it could be the Bucks and the Celtics and the Nets as far as their main competition when it comes to the Eastern Conference. And this could create not a juggernaut, because I don't think it's going to go that far, but this could create a really tough road for the Boston Celtics to kind of navigate to get through. So I'm really hesitant of what's going to happen here, and why the Celtics didn't give up anything for Udoka. It's just mind-boggling, and it just can't escape the fact that they're not getting something for this. Even like a bench player, a late first round pick, something along that lines. You hold the keys to this. You hold all the cards in the situation. But again, to me, it just, there's got to be something more that the Celtics ownership knows, that they just don't want out there. One, legally they can't say, and that I don't know. It's so odd that they're not asking for something, and they're just going to let him go to your biggest rival. So this, like I said, this could come back and bite him in the ass, but I just have the feeling that even with Udoka there, you're just adding gasoline on this fire, and man, we could watch this all melt down in front of our own eyes. And because I just don't think there's any saving this Nets organization as far as even as talented as they are with Irving and Durant. It's just oof, it's just a mind screw as far as what's going on right now. So we'll see how this all kind of unravels for the Boston Celtics. Now, of course, how is this going to we've already kind of talked about how the Udoka situation would affect the Celtics as far as when he first got suspended. Now, on the Celtics side of things, is this going to create their own kind of storm here that's going to get kicked up as far as will this affect the players? Now, of course, I mean I don't think this is going to be a disaster for the Celtics, but I think for maybe the next couple games here until something happens with Udoka and then obviously until they face Udoka. I mean, this is going to be more of a headache than anything else because this Celtics team is very talented. They played offensively; they played very well under their Joe Mazzulla. Defensively, there have been some situations where they need to tighten things up. But again, it's early in the season; they're 4-2, and Jason Tatum is playing lights out. So I don't think it's going to be a complete disaster as far as with the Celtics, as far as this is all going to a sudden unravel because of the situation. I think there'll be a few awkward situations, but this Celtics team is way too talented, and with Tatum and Brown, what they've said in the preseason, they're too focused on driving again for another title and trying to bring that home. That yes, it's going to be a headache. It may feel like a migraine, but I don't think it's going to be enough to derail this situation for the Boston Celtics when it comes to this Udoka situation. So I'm not let me put it this way. My panic meter isn't screaming right now. It's not flashing red like with like 30 beats per second or something stupid like that. It's at probably about like maybe a 4 or 3 or 4. Yeah, I'll put it at a 3. It's like, there could be a little bit of kind of pain, but but I think they'll rip the Band-Aid off here shortly and we'll be back to normal. So it'll be interesting to see how this all kind of affects the Celtics moving down the road. Now, our other big story here that we have is the New England Patriots. They beat the New York Jets in just ugly is not the best way to describe it, but it wasn't pretty either because Mac Jones did get the start. So that was the positive there because I told you last week that I wanted Mac Jones to be the starter. He deserves to be the starter the rest of the way through, just because more from the standpoint, you have to see what you have in that first round pick. And if he's going to be worthwhile investing in coming into the offseason, add some playmakers through the free agent market or through the draft or through trades. See if it's worthwhile investing in this young man. I mean, regardless, you have to add some more talent to this team. But this is where with Mac Jones, I really wanted to have him get that start against this Jets team, which I think they're a mirage at 5-2, but these aren't your little brothers Jets. We'll just put it that way. The ones that have been awful since 2010. So for the last decade, they've been, except for that 1 year in 2015 when Todd Bowles had a decent season with them. I mean, they've been awful. And so this is the first time that they've really been somewhat competitive. And it was nice to see that he got the start against the competitive Jets team. Now, things didn't start out the best. He had a couple drives there, 3 drives or so. Really didn't get much done. And of course, they started kind of driving. And then Mac Jones had that tipped ball at the line of scrimmage as he was cocking back. And that one got tipped, and it was just a dying duck in the air. And of course, the Jets picked it off. And before you know, it was 10-3 Jets, and you're like, "Oh my God, this is going to be the Bears game all over again." Do the Patriots suck? Are we screwed? Are we going to put the fork in them already? And then Mac Jones, right towards the end of the half, it's 10-3. The Patriots put together a really good drive, and then Mac Jones throws a pick to the Jets. It should have been a pick six, but a roughing the passer call saved Mac's ass, and they were able to drive down and get points out of that and make it 10-6 heading into the half. But man, it was just a slog in that first half. Things kind of got better there in the second half. The Patriots offense, though, still had problems scoring as they finally got a Ramondre Stevenson touchdown. They ended up getting um, multiple field goals. They had big kick. Nick came through. He had 13 or 15 points on the day himself. So he had a great day on his own accord. So it was really a defensive battle. Of course, Devin McCourty, who we'll get to in a little bit, but it was the McCourty show. He had 2 picks, set the record, or not set the record, but is now the active leader in interceptions in the NFL. So all around, though, it was just like a defensive slog. And the Patriots just were able to move the ball just enough to get into the red zone, get some field goals. They were able to punch it in a couple times, but it was just, like I said, it was just tough. It was a tough watch there. Now, Mac Jones in the second half ended up having a solid game in the second half. Nothing like you're going to be overly hyped for, overly excited, but it was just enough where he settled down. They took out a lot of those 50-50 balls that they had been going with, and it worked to a standpoint. As we look here, as Mac Jones on the day had passed for 194 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So, and that 1 interception one touchdown went to Jacoby Myers on the day. So it was the second half, I guess, was efficient, if you want to put it that way. The first half was a slog. The second half was just efficient offense, nothing to write home about. But again, it was, I guess if you want to call it improvement, I guess it was, just because Mac Jones was able to finish this game and it wasn't a overreaction by Belichick. Now, I know all the Zappy people were ready to pounce and were ready, like, all right, we're here to put Mac in again after 3 or 4 drives, and nothing was getting going. And then he had the pick. And of course, you had them all coming out of the woodwork. But Belichick stayed the course. They were able to get the victory over this decent Jets team. So I listen, this has not been the greatest of starts here to the year for Mac Jones. What he's already at 7 interceptions now. He's had 8 interceptions. So he's off to a rough start, but this is where you have to persevere and kind of push through and see what you have with Mac. I mean, coming into this year, obviously I'm still behind Mac and I still am, but this is where you can't just all of a sudden forget what he's done over the last year and a half, now that we're at the halfway point. And there's been more good than bad out of this whole situation. He's shown enough to me. And I think he gets put in a bad spot because, again, I know we've beat this dead horse to a pulp, but at the same time, it's so true as far as Matt Patricia is his coordinator. They don't have any elite offensive weapons. I love you, Jacoby. Very good. But this is a guy that should be a second or third receiver on your team. He should be the possession guy. He's a very good receiver, but he's not an elite guy. He's not a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase, one of those type of guys. He's not, but he is a very good possession type of guy, moves the chains, and now he's starting to get touchdowns in this offense. So he's a very valuable piece, but they just don't have that game breaker type of weapon that Matt can rely on and open up everything for everybody else. So between Matt Patricia, he hasn't been as bad as we all thought, because I mean, the bar was so low where we were expecting a complete disaster, and week one didn't start out great, but then things have kind of settled down. He's had some bumps here and there, but again, it's still where everybody's like, when they saw Zappy come in and have success, it was more they changed things up and were running very quick looks, very easy looks for him, and using more play action. Where I think with Mac is he excels at running play action, and for some reason they got away from the play action. They're using all these 50-50 balls down the field, and instead of working to the strengths of Mac. And yes, he's very smart. So you can open up the playbook, and you should open up the playbook for him, but you should open up the playbook, but also be able to work to his strengths when you open up the playbook. And they just weren't doing that. And they really still haven't done that to a full extent yet. So it's just been maddening what they're doing. It almost feels like they're giving Mac Jones the finger and pulling him the rug out from under him, and then turning right back around and being like, okay, Zappy, here's all the good plays. And I know that's not obviously I'm exaggerating here, but I know that's not what's happening. It just feels like that as a fan, because I know you want to give Mac more on the plate, but it's like, work to his strengths, for crying out loud. And again, like I said, with Mac, I just also feel bad for him that they haven't given a full arsenal of weapons. I mean, you now have Ramondre Stevenson, who is morphed into an all-around great back. He's getting into the top echelon of running backs in the league. He can catch passes. So you have one elite or one evolving or one developing elite weapon in Ramondre. But again, you still don't have that take the top off wide receiver, or you don't have a tight end like a Gronk or a Kelsey or an Andrews or Goddard, even if you want to go that route, because Dallas Goddard is pretty good, but you don't have that tight end that you can really mold your offense around either. So it's just maddening as far as people want to just forget what's happened with Mac and just toss him out with the bathwater in this instance. And I know it sounds like I'm making excuses for Mac, but it's just he's had so much more good than he has bad, and we're ready to just bury him prematurely. And I'm not ready to go there yet. I just am not. It's ridiculous what's happening, what's all the slander that's getting thrown his way. And that's why it was nice in this Jets game to kind of see him come back after that bad interception that he had that got tipped, and to come out. And I know there was a couple moments where it looked he was a little skittish, but in that second half, he played better. He came out, made some nice throws. He made a couple nice ones where he threaded the needle. So they were there. It just wasn't in full display. So I'll be curious to see going to Indianapolis how that goes, and how they're going to fare against the Colts there. I'm sorry, they're not going to Indianapolis. They have Indy coming to them, coming to Foxborough. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes with the Colts. But I mean, it'll be. I still believe in Mac. This Colts team they're decent. Decent to a little below average. So there's nothing to write home about. We just talked. They've lost. They traded away some pieces. They have some injuries to maybe some key players here, as it looks as though Jonathan Taylor might be out. And then, of course, with Matt Ryan out on the sidelines, that's Sam Ehlinger. And he's a second-year quarterback that really hasn't gotten much playing time. He looked, I guess, okay. It wasn't anything to write home. It wasn't special. Just wasn't impressed with him last week. But so it'll be interesting to see how this all goes here for Mac Jones in this one. And it's a solid Colts defense, but it's not the same one that they had over the last couple of years. They've had their bumps and bruises here. They've lost Malik Hooker. So you still have Darius Leonard and DeForest Buckner, but it's just to me, it's a middle of the road defense. So it'll be a solid challenge for Mac at home against the Colts. And I think we'll start to see a better Mac Jones here. Maybe we might not see Mac throw for 5 touchdowns and over 400 yards right away this weekend. But I think we'll see a very workmanlike, like 230 with 2 touchdowns and 15 rushing yards. So I think we'll see a solid performance here from Mac. I think we'll finally see him stop the turnovers here and get back on the right track and lead this team to a victory. It's just, man, it's been tough sledding here for Mac, and obviously because of the injury and some of the situation that he's in. So, I mean, you just have to see what you have in him and keep developing him here. And as we talked about in that Jets game, man, you're just so happy watching that game, realizing that the Jets did everybody a favor with that number 2 pick and took Zach Wilson and saved any other fan base from disappointment, because man, he has been awful, 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 awful. Man, and especially against the Patriots too. There's something against these last couple of rookie quarterbacks that they've had. Remember, Sam Darnold had the "I'm seeing ghost" comment, and then in his second year, and now Zach Wilson in his second year had another multiple pick game, a 3-pick game against the Patriots, and 2 of them were Devin McCourty. So the one good thing about last weekend was that the defense played very, very well against this Jets team. They had I should say pretty well against this Jets team. They had a couple chunk plays there from Garrett Wilson, but I mean, Garrett Wilson is a young stud that I hope doesn't get wasted away there hope doesn't get wasted away there with the Jets, and he would be a guy that I'd love to have on the Patriots, but this is a young stud receiver that they have. So, I mean, this was the one guy that I thought could make some noise. They don't have Breece Hall. He's out with an ACL injury. So this was, I mean, it wasn't a fully loaded Jets team. And of course, with Zach Wilson, he's looked horrible. And man, it was, I was just waiting, because that first half, Zach Wilson really didn't play all that bad in the first half. But then the second half came around and he was just making bad decisions with the football, turning it over left and right. And man, they did make him pay, not with as many touchdowns as I would like to see out of that situation, but they were able to get points out of these in most of them. I think just that the first Devin McCourty pick, they weren't able to get a field goal out of it, but for the rest of those interceptions, they did make him pay. So Zach Wilson just was so bad, and just thankful as a Patriots fan that he was just handed out like he had Halloween there on Sunday. But I do like the rebound there from the Patriots defense. They only gave up the 2 touchdowns on the day. They really held the Jets for most of that game. So they had a nice rebound game after getting absolutely gashed by the Bears. But the Patriots have had a history of having so much trouble there with running quarterbacks that I should have seen it in hindsight, but I mean, I just overlooked what the Bears were. So I'm pleasantly surprised. I was happy with what I saw out of the defense there for the Patriots, and it'll be interesting to see how they continue to build off of that moving forward. Because outside of the Chicago game, they really haven't had that game where they've absolutely been gutted or gashed. Chicago is really the only game, surprisingly, so far that they've really been absolutely just manhandled. Even the Baltimore game, they had times where they were playing decent against Baltimore. I mean, Lamar Jackson was just on fire that first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. But I mean, I really have been. I'm probably give the Patriots a B- with what's happened defensively as far as early in the first half of this season. So I'll be curious to kind of see how things develop moving through the rest of the season. And of course, Patriots did not make any moves at the trade deadline, which I was scratching my head at, even from the standpoint of trading away a couple pieces like Isaiah Wynn and Nelson Aguilar, or even as much as I would like to see the Patriots utilize them more, if you're not going to use, maybe you kind of get some of that salary off the books, but they didn't trade Kendrick Bourne either. So it's been it was kind of interesting because you saw a lot of the other teams there, like the Dolphins specifically in your own division, went out and sent a first round pick to the Denver Broncos along with Chase Edmonds for Bradley Chubb. So, and he is a stud. You just don't hear a lot about him just because he's out there in Denver and he's not a very verbose type of personality. He's more quiet, but he is a guy that is a great pass rusher. That's the guy that in the draft, Belichick really he said we're not gonna. He worked him out and he loved them, but said, "Wait, you're gonna go way too high before we can get to you, so I won't have a chance to draft you." So that's a guy that Belichick loves. That's another great addition to that Miami team that's gonna haunt you for a while. They also picked up Jeff Wilson, and there weren't a ton of wide receivers that got moved outside of you had Chase Claypool got traded to the Bears for a second round pick, which was in my opinion was is high just because he had a had a he had a nice stretch his rookie year where it looked like he was going to be another one of those rookie wide receivers. It looked like because he was in that same class as um, uh, why am I blanking here? In the same class with Justin Jefferson, Jerry Judy, those guys. So he was in that same class as well. So and it looked like he was going to be another steal for Pittsburgh, who's always identified him. And I mean, he's had a solid go of it, but he got traded to Chicago, so that was a little interesting there. So the other big move was the Lions sending TJ Hawkinson over to the division rival Minnesota Vikings, who did lose Irv Smith for 6 to 8 weeks. So he's going to be out for a while. So they, in my opinion, they upgraded with TJ Hawkinson, who was taken in the top 10 of the draft. And he was viewed as the next coming at tight end out of Iowa. He was a guy that I really loved coming out of Iowa, and he's shown flashes of being an absolute monster. And then there's other games where he's been MIA and on the back of a milk carton. So he's had a up and down here couple first 2 or 3 years here in the NFL, but again, this is a guy that's going to a way better situation in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell, and of course you have at quarterback Kirk Cousins. You have Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, is no worse than a top 3 receiver in the league. So, and obviously Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen as well. So there are really good pieces on that offense. But the Patriots stood pat. And this is where I thought they might, like I said, might trade away some of the pieces to make a little room cap wise for some of those malcontents that are on the roster. Or maybe you trade one of them to get a piece, you get another maybe backup lineman, you get another receiver. So it was interesting. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. But anyways, the New England but the Patriots did not make a move here at the trade deadline, so I was a little disappointed with not making that move. So, and again, they're kind of in that no man's land territory because they're not in the top tier because obviously that belongs to the Bills and to the Chiefs, at least in the AFC. And then we also have, then you have the Eagles in the NFC. Sorry, I was getting a text there. I was getting a call. I was just trying to see what was going on. Just wanted to make sure there wasn't an emergency there. Sorry, folks. That's why I was a little distracted. But right, so the Patriots aren't in the top echelon, especially in the AFC. They're not there. They're in that. They're kind of in the mix there with the Chargers. They're above the Broncos now that they're a hot mess. They're above the Raiders. So, but they're right in there with the Jets, with the Miami Dolphins. Although some of their moves they might have just a tick higher, but they're kind of right in the mix with the Tennessee. So they're kind of right in the middle. So that's where I would have liked to have seen them maybe kind of go out, maybe give a call to the Carolina Panthers about DJ Moore, although those rumors got shut down as far as anybody trading for him. So it was a little disappointing that they didn't make a move either way to kind of trade away some of those pieces and maybe something for one of those offensive linemen as far as in win that didn't want to be there. But we'll see how this all kind of goes here for the Patriots. Now, here, excuse me. Now, like I said, the Patriots will be facing Indianapolis at home this coming week. It'll be interesting to see how the Patriots attack this Colts team, just because they're kind of in a precarious situation because, again, they're kind of middling as well. This is where I think they're dealing with some injuries. So I think this might be a nice get right game here for Mac Jones. Like I said earlier, I think this is where he could have like a 230, 240 game passing with a couple touchdowns, 2-3 touchdowns, have a nice get back game. And Ramondre Stevenson, again, being the workhorse, getting somewhere in that neighborhood of 80 to 100 yards, and then catching a couple more balls for probably about like 40 yards. So having another nice day and just, again, sniffing around the end zone for a touchdown. So this is really, really what I love with this, or what I love with this Patriots team is, even though they deal with some turnovers and they deal with a little bit of inconsistency offensively, they're able to grind these wins out and they're able to get things going here for the Patriots. So I do like what I see with I am going to be interested to see how the Patriots attack this team, this Indianapolis Colts team. So, and again, defensively, this is where the Patriots I think they're going to be able to really take advantage of this Colts team, as now they're dealing with Sam Ehlinger at quarterback, and now they have they really don't have anybody that scares you on offense. Well, let me rephrase this. So you have Sam Ehlinger at quarterback, who is not doesn't do it for me, even though you have Michael Pittman, who I love Michael Pittman, but with Sam Ehlinger, that kind of reduces that, and you can double team him, and there's nobody else that I fear in that receiving core. And if Jonathan Taylor misses this game with that injury, you traded away Naheem Hines. You do have Deion Jackson, who did have a good game when he had to fill in for Taylor 3 weeks ago. But again, he's not to that level where I'm scared of Deion Jackson. So I think the Patriots defense will be able to hold him at bay. So this is just a Colts team that I'm not taking them for granted, but this is a Colts team that I think is going to be able to that it just they don't have much to work with here as far as that quarterback, and without Jonathan Taylor in that running back, if he can't go, really they're pretty much relying on Michael Pittman to really drag them into the end zone, literally at this point, or get them into field goal position on probably some short passes. But I think this Patriots defense is going to be able to get some turnovers in this game off of Ehlinger and really do some work. And I think this is where we see a big game here from that pass rush from Dietrich Wise, Matthew Judon, and Uche. So I think they'll go to work on this Colts team. And again, I think this is, again, where the Patriots off on the opposite side. I think this is where the Patriots, it's a solid defense, but it's not anything to write home about for the Colts. So this is just where I think they grind it out offensively as well. So if you're going to bet the game, I would take the under on it, where just Ramondre Stevenson just chews up a lot of yards. Like I said, it's a yeoman's day for Mac Jones, where he gets like 230 and a couple touchdowns. So this is where I think the Patriots end up winning this one 21 to 10 in this game. It's nothing. It's going to just be another slog here, but I hope I'm wrong. I hope we see an explosion here from Mac Jones, and I really hope we see him take a step forward. But I just think this is going to be another slog here, and especially if the Colts don't have Jonathan Taylor, this could really be just another slog of a game moving forward. Now we'll get to something a little fun here, as we always do at the end of the podcast, and that is going to be your big bet of the week. And this week for our big bet, we are going to go down to a surprising matchup that at the beginning of the year, none of you would have probably taken this game, but I'm going to take the Seahawks who at the Cardinals on Sunday at the 4:05 start. Now the Seahawks, who right now, so it's basically the San Francisco 49ers and the Seahawks who look like they're running the West. So this looks like it looks like it's circa 2011 through 2014 with these two teams vying for that NFC West. So we're going back in the Wayback Machine here. But but the Seahawks are at Arizona. They are it's only a 2-point spread here. So the Cardinals are only favored by 2. So in this game, I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks. They're a plus 110. And I'm going to take the over in this one just because the both teams do have some firepower offensively. And remember, this is where the Seahawks are actually with Geno Smith playing very well offensively, surprisingly, at this point. So in this one, I'm going to parlay this same gamer into the Seahawks, take the Seahawks on the money line, and take the 49.5 point over. I know that's quite a bit for these two teams, but again, both of these teams have some firepower here. And if you put a cool 40 on this, then you could walk away with $156 this weekend if you decided to take the Seahawks over the Cards on the road. But I will put my money where my mouth is on that one, at least. Maybe not the $40, but we'll see. I'll bet that. I'm definitely going to bet that game and take the Seahawks in this one. So that's going to be my big bet of the week. And again, it's not the strongest of slates here betting wise for the Patriots for the NFL this weekend. There are a couple other games that are kind of on the slate if you want. The Monday night game actually isn't a bad one here with the Ravens and the Saints. In this one, I kind of like the Saints as far as maybe an upset in this one because Baltimore has kind of been up and down this year. Although they did get Rodarius Smith out, Roquan Smith, out of Chicago. So they strengthened their defense, but I do like that one as well. And really, other than that, there aren't any other ones that are kind of just like jumping off the page. A lot of these ones are some good teams playing some bad teams. Like we have the Dolphins versus the Bears. You got the Bills versus the Jets. I mean, tomorrow night's game is the Eagles and the Texans. That's a massive, massive valley there. I mean, even some of the lower odds ones like the Vikings and the Commanders, nothing really there. I mean, I still would really favor the Vikings in that one. The one interesting one is the Chargers and the Falcons, if you want to bet that one, because right now the Falcons are leading the NFC South, surprisingly, but I mean, only at what 4-4, 3-4. And then you have the Chargers who are right there in the playoff mix. So that could be an interesting one. But yeah, it's not with some bye weeks here with some pretty heavy hitters with San Francisco and some others off the books here that I like to bet. There's not a lot to kind of look forward to. I shouldn't say not a lot to look forward to, but it's just not the same as far as on this betting schedule. So it's a heavy bye week. So so we don't have some of those same slates to bet on here as well. And as we always do, we'll wrap things up here with some fantasy advice for you. And this week, we're going to throw some players in the trade machine and see what we get out of this. And here are some players to kind of look at moving forward, going down the stretch. Now, at quarterback, one that I really love is Dak Prescott. If you can get Dak Prescott and trade for him now that he's back and healthy, he looked really good against the Bears. He didn't miss a beat. So this is a guy that last week put up 26 points, had over 250 yards passing, had 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. He looked very good. And in a Cowboys team that looks like they're starting to move up the ranks there in the NFC, they're going to be probably one of the top wild cards teams. They have some interesting offensive pieces that Dak has to throw to, and C. Lamb and Dalton Schultz. And he has Michael Gallup back. And obviously he has Tony Pollard that he can throw to out of the backfield. So he's got some interesting pieces there. So it might not be Dak Prescott from back in 2020 when he was absolutely lighting the league up before he twisted his ankle. But again, this is going to be a interesting home stretch here for Dak Prescott over the second half of the season. So I think you're going to be able to get some good usage out of him because he's got some good matchups coming. He's got Houston still. He's got Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Tennessee. You have a Green Bay team who's just not the same. So this could be a very, very good stretch here that you could get Dak Prescott for down the stretch. And so that's one guy that you should look to trade for coming down the stretch. And now another one here that as far as at the wide receiver slot that I love, that if you probably haven't traded for him now, the price has gone up and up and up, but that is going to be DeAndre Hopkins out of the Arizona Cardinals, who's had 2 monster performances after coming off the injured reserve list, as he's put up a 36 point performance and a 22-point performance. He's had back-to-back 10 plus receptions and over 100 yards in each. And last week we had 12 receptions for 159 yards and a touchdown. So again, this is a guy that missed a lot of time because of that suspension, but now he's back. So we could have a really good situation here going on with DeAndre Hopkins. So that's one of these guys that I would definitely put some trade offers in for as well. And of course, at the running back position, one guy that I definitely would put in some requests for here as well, and that is going to be, excuse me, just had it here if my notes would load. Okay, so for at the running back position, one of these guys that I would trade for if you're needing help and you don't want to give up a ton of money, but that would be Raheem Mostert. And of course, I know they just got Jeff Wilson, but Mostert's had a very good kind of start to his tenure here down in Miami, as he's put up a couple 20 and 15-point performances as far as in fantasy is concerned. He's in that Mike McDaniel's offense. So I love what he's got going there. And he's proven in that Shanahan style offense, which McDaniel came from. So he's put up points in Shanahan's offense before. So now that I think that he's pretty much gotten the starting back role now that they traded away Chase Edmonds, you have Raheem Mostert, who is going to be leaned on, and Jeff Wilson is still going to be a nice piece as far as that second piece. So I think they'll be able to split. But Raheem Mostert is going to be that home run hitter, if you will. So I do like what they have going with Raheem Mostert, and that's a guy that I think you should definitely target and pick up. And then another one at tight end. If you are desperate and there's not a lot of streaming options in your league, I think one guy that you should try to pick up would be Gerald Everett with the Chargers, because remember, Everett started off pretty hot there with the Chargers. He's kind of cooled off lately, but he's back now, and especially with some injuries to the receiving core with Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen still might not be back. So he's going to see a lot of targets here this week and moving forward over the next 4 weeks or so. So that could be a guy that if you don't have a lot of streaming options, to maybe to target him as well moving down the stretch. All right, so that's going to do it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the show. Now, as always, we will keep you up to date as far as what's going on with the New England Patriots. We'll break down that Indianapolis game that's going to happen here Sunday at 1. anything happens there, we'll definitely break that down as well. And of course, anything that happens with the Ime Udoka situation, if he ends up getting traded, probably going to get a notification here that he's probably going to get traded over the next 24 hours. Just checked a notification, that wasn't it. So he'll probably be traded, and obviously keep you up to date with anything with the Celtics and Bruins and Red Sox as well. And remember that you can always watch the the stream of the podcast every night, every Wednesday night live at 8 p.m. if the internet wants to work and they want to actually let me into StreamYard. I will be able to get it right up and going at 8 o'clock. You can always hit the like and subscribe here on YouTube. And remember, you can always drop a comment in the live chat. And of course, if you can't make it to the live stream, you can always listen to the podcast version as well. And you can find that at Spotify or SoundCloud. Just go and search for New England Sports Weekly. Download, like, and subscribe there as well. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always send that to any of the socials, which again, remember, if for my Twitter and my Instagram, it is at Sean Met28, or you can just hit the Instagram account for the show at NE Sports SK or WK, excuse me. Or you can hit the Twitter at NE Sports Weekly and send any questions that you have, and we will definitely get to you on the show. All right, everybody. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy some football this weekend as well. We will talk to you next week.